Welcome and thank you so much for clicking on my video today. Really do appreciate it. And today we're going to get into some technical analysis and go into those shorter time frames to mainly focus on the day ahead. But we do have a few things to talk about in this video. And today, how we're going to do things is we're overall going to get you guys some daily expected moves from the SPY and the Qs. First, start off nice and chill, and then we're going to discuss some data drops going on for tomorrow morning and actually something happening, I believe, tomorrow afternoon. So we will look at those. And then we're going to focus on the 30-minute time frame, really to just focus on the day ahead, because it is very interesting that we do get these confirmations, but during an earnings week and during some data drops, you can always see that little move higher. That convinces you that this market is not going to pull back on the daily at this point. And this week, you have the highest probability that you are going to see some kind of top. Analyze most of the stocks we cover on this channel. We are going to have a full-time video. Yay! I finally have somewhat of my life back. July has been a very busy time for me. It has been great. Got to spend a lot of time with family, but I am excited to actually be able to sit and focus on stocks again and analyze them for you. And then we're going to go over the VIX and give you guys a little summary. So hopefully we are able to produce something helpful for you today. And we're going to start off by getting you guys some daily expected moves. So let's get into it. Before we get into those daily expected moves, wow, what a confirmation. And I really don't care if the market wants to do this or if the market wants to do this. I'm just going to keep building that short position because this thing is going to tumble, and earnings and all this stuff is just going to make people excited. And I don't really care about earnings, to be totally honest. I choose to trade something else. Implied volatility is very high, not very good to trade earnings, in my opinion. But we can see here that we have 4-hour divergence across the way. We have the 2-hour that is dropping down. We can always extend that move a little bit, but I'm going to be building a longer out position in this area for us to head down to next month's monthly expected move. And that's just how I'm going to do things. So I wanted to announce that, but also get you guys some daily expected moves. And I forgot, I have a little bit of time today. I don't have to talk like some kind of speed demon robot. That's actually very nice. So today's expected moves for the SPY is going to be 639.92 to the upside. We do have 630.60 to the downside. This is a 68% zone. If you do not, or you are maybe new here and you just didn't have the weekly expected moves, those are always going to be in purple, and these are 68% zones as well. This is calculated using the options data, and we give out more of this data for individual stocks over on Patreon. So if you are choosing to play earnings, I never really do. Well, you can get those levels for those stocks, but very nice. Make sure to get these red lines on there. If you need to pause and update your charts, it's perfectly fine, and then you can come right back. The Qs, we're just going to bounce over to the Qs. That way we get this out at the beginning of the video. Once again, these are 68% zones, and this is your 68% zone. That means you have a 32% chance to close the day above it. You have a 68% chance to close the day in this area. This would be 572.46 for the Qs to the upside, and we do have 562.06 to the downside. Do you notice, if you have been watching me for a little bit here over the last few days, and maybe you have seen the daily expected moves that I've created, do you notice anything interesting here? Well, they have spread out dramatically. Now, why overall could they be spreading out a little bit bigger? And I said dramatically, it's not the most dramatic. We've definitely seen bigger days, but it is a much bigger implied volatility than we have seen in a while for the SPY. And so that is because we will get some data tomorrow. We will get the GDP growth rate. What I wanted to discuss about this is when this number came out, I believe it was actually slightly celebrated because the number that they projected was extremely negative, and it was only a little negative at the time. And now you'll notice that now that we have seen a negative GDP growth rate there, we actually see it as forecasted to be very good. This is where I do think that these numbers are complete BS, and I'm just going to be totally honest with you. This channel is to help you out. This is how I view markets. This is how I see things. It is totally my opinion. You can disagree with me. I think that this is a bunch of BS, and whatever number is produced here, I pretty much think it's BS as well, and everything has to do with money and power. That is overall how I see things. I think it is much better to pay attention to the signals that you see in front of you, the fact that the market is way up there, and if you are saying, hey, I want to hold on to a call position for the next 2 months, well, then you're going to have to hold through some turbulence, and that's what I believe. Now, as you head down a little bit, we will see that we will get the Fed interest rate decision as well. I don't necessarily expect this to change. I really don't, but the Fed press conference could be interesting and could cause some turbulence as people really think we need a rate cut. But the Fed press conference, they're probably going to ask, like, hey, are you getting fired? Are you stepping down? Are you going to cut rates for Trump? It's going to be very interesting. So I would keep an ear on that. Now, as we go through our little list here, it says we need to focus on the 30-minute time frame. So now we are going to go over the SPY and the QQQs, but starting off with the SPY, we do see that the 2-hour chart was able to confirm down here. Now, these weren't the best divergences in the world, but what if we go create one right now? And that's where I really wanted to focus on the 30-minute. The 30-minute chart here is going to be very important. Do we curl up here? Because that 2-hour has confirmed, and there are forms of divergence. The 4-hour has confirmed. There are divergences confirmed there. This would be the management for the trade if the 30-minute is able to curl up into positive territory. So if they wanted to bait you into a Friday, wouldn't this happen? Or bait you into a big event like the Fed press conference, or maybe even the data going on tomorrow, which I believe is actually, let me look at that. I think it's PCE. Yeah, core PCE as well, personal income, personal spending. So I really am paying attention to this. Now, why am I paying attention to this? We have not lost the 5. We have not seen that break through the 5, test the 5, and roll down again to really start us into a negative trend. As far as your indicators go, you are not far away from the center line. If this curls up, where is it? It's positive. So where are we likely to go to tomorrow? 639.92. That's where you are likely to go tomorrow if you are able to curl up on this MACD on the 30-minute. It's positive territory. Even with all those divergences, it doesn't matter. That's how bull markets work. Now, if this isn't able to cross up, or it's able to cross up and you say, hey, I'm going to manage risk, and then it curls down one more time, well, that's how we might end up down to that expected downside move. But I think a lot of this will be dependent on if there's earnings, or I would more so say GDP. I think GDP in the morning will be very, very interesting. And then obviously the Fed press conference. So overall, this is very, very good. We see that there are buyers in this area. This is where we consolidated to go higher. This is not necessarily worrisome. The 5-day is perfectly fine. And if the 30-minute would curl up, maybe we didn't need a rejection divergence, but we need a real one right here. So something that I would pay attention to is if the 30-minute is able to go to that move, does it set up a point of divergence, and do we see turbulence towards the end of the day? There are a ton of earnings coming out, I believe, after hours tomorrow, and we're going to go over some of those stocks today. Maybe not as thoroughly as you would like, you people who want to make $1 million in one day. That is not how I do things. If you want to make money in markets, the slow way is the fast way. Don't let anyone tell you different. Stop trying to make some YOLO plays. That's how I like to talk about markets, and I'm going to be very honest from now on about how I view markets. This is really all you need to know, right? This is pretty much it. If you overcomplicate things, you overcomplicate things. If the 30-minute curls up, you are very likely to go up to 639.92, and that's it for the Qs, or for the spot. If we go to the Qs, is this really worrisome? No, it is not. You are above the 5. You really wiped out a divergence point, so I think it's very likely that we could see something like this tomorrow. And I'll be paying attention to it, and I'll be talking to Patreon members about it. But that 572.46, if I took any kind of 2-hour confirmation, which the Qs have a great divergence here. The Qs have a great divergence. So unless we blow this out of the water, if we go up to here and roll, if we go to here and roll, if we just start down and start to stair step, this is looking pretty bad for the Qs as far as a confirmation goes. But the management for the trade that we discussed over on Patreon says if that 30-minute is close to the center line, if that thing can go positive and that curls up, then I might not want to necessarily be in that position right then. But I told Patreon I am overall building a short position where I'm building a short position for the SPY. I am building a volatility position as well. Been doing that for pretty much today and yesterday. Not very, like actually it's green now, so everything's fantastic. But we notice that this has the 572.46. We notice that we did wipe that point out for the RSI. So maybe we want to head to that upside and create that divergence with one more FOMO trap. If we are able to squeeze through with some great info into some great info, we can raise that floor and go up to the weekly expected move by, say, Friday. And that could be very interesting, and that would be in your 68% zone. This is pretty much all that needs to be known for the Qs, but right now they are pointing down, waiting for it to confirm up. If we are able to break down to that bottom side move and we just see that GDP comes out as bad, we could get a counter trend move that then rolls. And this would be our first sign that things are actually starting to tumble. So watch out. Now it's time to get into the individual stocks, and I'm going to talk very honestly about how I view stocks when there is an E at the bottom of my screen and the implied volatility is very high. Here is how I view it. The implied volatility for the SPY and the QQQ have been very low for the past couple of days. They are starting to increase because of data. The implied volatility for these stocks that have earnings is very, very high. Therefore, if you are wrong, you are going to lose all your money. If you are right, but not right enough, then you can lose a lot of your money. It doesn't matter. You can get totally burned. The fact that this is here means I'm not looking at it. And that's how I view markets. And that's how I view it at this point. If the 2 hour is able to curl up into positive territory, you can see an upside move. Right now it's dipping down and going negative. That's all you got. If you go over to something like Tesla, now Tesla is an interesting one to me because this very easily could be that scenario where we bounce from this level and then we roll that move back under the 5 one more time. So if the 2 hour is able to confirm down, that is overall a bad thing, and you are very likely to break these levels. Watch for us to test something down here towards 290. That way we can go and touch this before we actually start to break down for Tesla. And this is just a very interesting one because if you're watching both directions, the bullish side would say, hey, if the 30-minute is able to curl up here, that would be a good thing. But doesn't this look like some kind of flagging that could end up breaking to the downside one more time? That is very interesting to me. But if the 30-minute is able to curl up, you can see some positivity because you are in positive territory for your MACD. If the 2 hour is able to curl down, you are very close to the other direction. So that would say that the 2 hour could break down and you are going into a negative trend. Amazon has an E on the screen down here, and you notice that there are flat divergences up here, and everyone wants to tell me that this is obviously a short, but I have no idea what they are going to say down here with earnings. The reason that I am saying these things is not to hurt your feelings. It is not to be a douche. It is not to be a dick. It is to tell you that I have played earnings before. Years and years ago, I literally have not played in earnings unless it was with like $100 for fun, to treat it like gambling, because you have no idea what numbers they're going to produce, and they could produce bad numbers and get a good reaction. They could produce good numbers and get a bad reaction. I am not someone who plays earnings, and that is what I would suggest for people who are just starting to look at markets. If you are playing earnings, you're trying to get rich the fast way by playing some option for 2 days. That is not what I do. That is not what made me successful. So I will not be really looking at Amazon because all it has to do is get some kind of report, and all these divergences mean nothing. But you'll notice that there are some stocks that have no E at the bottom of the screen. In fact, NVIDIA actually has earnings way off towards August 27th. So you have plenty of time for this, and I want you to look at this in front of you while you are distracted with all of the earnings going on, and everyone on YouTube is trying to get you to click on their video because earnings, this, and you can make so much money with earnings, and I'm the one who knows exactly the numbers they're going to produce and the reaction to it. All you have to do is look at NVIDIA and say, hey, this is crossing down on the daily. It looks like it needs a serious daily pullback. Where would that like to pull back to? These areas down in here, maybe even quickly in August, or I think going into September expiration, where we will potentially get a rate cut and maybe Jerome gets axed, maybe gets fired. So what is going on here? Do I see signs? Do I see the analysis? Do I see the signals that this can be a bad thing right now? Look at the 2 hour chart. You are literally seeing the most significant 2 hour divergence that you have seen for NVIDIA in a while now. And you've actually stacked that up to make a triple divergence at this point. You can see that this point right here is higher than this one. You can see that this point right here is higher than this one. If this were to confirm and lose the 5-day start to roll, we can start to break down over time. This is one that I would be paying attention to. This is one that says, I don't have earnings. I'm just going off of momentum. I'm just going off of buying and selling based on the stock right now. And guess what? The 30-minute chart, if this wanted to, you saw a big move to the upside. So what if you get the hint that the 2 hour chart is going to cross and you see this come down to the 5 but cross back up? Create a divergence point or create a lower high, and you say, oh my goodness, there's the roll that I need. This is a fantastic one to pay attention to, and I just want to go over it again here for the 2 hour chart and just say, look at the divergence on the 2 hour chart. If this confirms down here and there is no kind of violation of the trade, no management of the trade necessary, then this would break down to lower levels, maybe break down all the way to like 160 into this sort of gap towards 160. And then we get some kind of counter move that everyone thinks is coming back, and all you see is left head and right shoulder. I'm never going to be exact on how it happens. I'm not a fortune teller, but I do see the 2-hour divergence. And if this confirms, then it is very likely that NVIDIA is getting a daily pullback. And that might be vigorous because we have gone up and up and up for a long time. And so I think we might go all the way down to this right here towards 143. And I am still very open to 133 at this point. AMD, you might be thinking, oh, earnings is a little bit off, but I can see the E on my screen. And what does AMD overall look like? If I'm holding on to the stock, I'm very, very happy. If I'm taking an option play, then what do I call this? Everyone who has talked with me before online in any kind of way, anyone who's looked at the core, what do we really talk about all the time with earnings in these videos? If something like AMD curls up and gives you a great 2-hour swing trade, the confirmation here on your MACD, the confirmation right there with the price action, the confirmation with the RSI, and that thing runs and runs and runs, and you see that earnings coming down the tape, this is called the get out of jail for free card. This is your Monopoly get out of jail for free card. Why would I play anything when I'm already making the money? Why would I risk losing that money with some kind of number that's probably manufactured, and the money already knows, the people who are behind this with more money than you already know which direction this is going to go. They potentially already dark pool and sold the whole damn thing, and they're just waiting to show you that little button while you FOMO in. I'm discussing these things very seriously to kind of hit you on the forehead a little bit and be like, AMD's really high up. If you were in it at the actual time of the trade, this is great. You have earnings. That is a wild thing that you have no idea what can happen. If you think it's going to squeeze, then you're going to have to live with that decision. But if this is just some kind of little 2-hour swing trade for you, the job is done as far as AMD goes. You do see some nothing here for AMD. It's going to be a very interesting time. And we're going to talk about it a little bit later and remind you of this if it starts going up again by that earnings. Watch out for AMD. Watch out for these things with earnings. This is your get out of jail for free card. And look at that. Meta starts to take a tumble right before earnings. Now, this could just be to make you get those, like, this is how earnings works. And this is the sad part of it. Meta, literally, the people could be selling it, right? Certain people, market makers could be selling this thing, pushing it down with options, making things go to dark pools so that you see this at the end of the day and you sell it, and Meta could go like that the next day. Or they could be getting out of those positions because they know something you don't, and that just drops down through the floor. This is not something that I like to play around with. I have tried to in the past using signals. It doesn't really work that well. Sometimes it gets it right, sometimes it gets it wrong. Oh, like to me, when I looked at it, I kind of was like, oh, well, it just didn't work out this time. No, then I started to pay attention to earnings and I go, oh, it doesn't matter. It literally doesn't matter. If you wanted to try to take plays on this, that's perfectly fine, but you're going to lose out on low implied volatility plays like, well, NVIDIA is still a little bit high, but like the SPY and the QQQ and like volatility right now, those are all pretty low implied volatility. So if you catch it when it's low implied volatility before it goes up to high implied volatility while we make a top this week, then you can actually make good money while everyone else is scrambling, trying to figure out if Meta is going to go up 100 points or down 100 points. And they're playing blackjack. They're gambling. They are playing roulette at this point. So Meta, I won't be paying attention to this. This is a terrible confirmation, and watch tomorrow because we could end up, we could end up down, and that's just the truth. Microsoft has an E there, and we are just scaling up and up and up and absolutely squeezing on the daily scale. You see plenty of those squeeze-like divergences where we're blatantly just going up, not even losing the 9-day moving average. So if you were down here at the lows and you were catching the left, the head, and the right shoulder that we were overall talking about, the 2-hour higher low, and you just said, hey, I'm going to invest for this for a little bit of time and hold that for the summer, bam, you made tons of money. That's fantastic. And it's unfortunate that I did not take Microsoft. I will admit that. But we notice that it is way up here. So when you buy low, usually they say the other part to that is sell high. And so at this point, is this really, really high? Well, let's kind of look across and say, yes, it is. So whether Microsoft wants to go up with earnings or whether Microsoft wants to drop off with earnings, I do not care. What I care about is it's probably going to spike up and then completely wipe it out once retail decides to buy it because they've been sitting on their hands probably until like this little moment right here. So I'm not interested in trading Microsoft, and this is my channel, and this is what I'm trying to say to you to be helpful. I don't care if it has a bunch of divergences. If you want to build a position here, that's up to you. I'm not doing anything with Microsoft because the implied volatility is high, and if I'm wrong for just a few days, then I can get theta burned. Why not just go look at the SPY and the Qs? That's what I'm doing overall. Now, Google just had its earnings, and so maybe we have been able to leak out some of this stuff, especially since it was Wednesday, July 23rd. We have given this some time, so this one's a little bit different. So when you look at the 2-hour chart, do you see potential 2-hour divergences forming? And you do. The closing of the bar is what you overall measure divergence to. So you have this right here and this right here, and you'll notice that that is down and not even crossed up yet. You could reject down, cross down, break this low, and see that rolling moment as the 5 starts to come across. And that can really show like, hey, there are bad things to come. But is this overall negative right now from the 30-minute chart? Not necessarily, but the 30-minute chart might be pretty good to watch here, at least in the morning. If the 30-minute is able to curl down, you do have triple divergence on your MACD. You have triple divergence on your RSI. That was a terrible drawing, I apologize. But you do have triple divergence there for your MACD and RSI at the same time. So if you wanted to break down here, you most likely would break down to say a weekly expected move with if the 2-hour really wants to drop, weekly expected move or something. Then you actually see that moment where people go, oh, it's coming back. And then if that rolls below the 5 again, that's where things can get pretty critical. That's where you can start to test levels like 185 again. And the truth be told, if you wanted to talk about Google where it would really like to test before, if it is able to roll in some way and confirm some kind of divergence, well, it would like to go all the way down to 165. Or potentially something like 177 if you're lucky. So Google is shaping something up. Google already had its earnings, but everyone's busy watching the other ones, trying to get rich fast when you literally could make money off of Google. And then we get to the memers, and everyone, I could pull up the clip and talk about this from a week or so ago back in these moments. And I said, hey, you see this 2-hour divergence? It's not on the MACD, but it is on the RSI. What do we know about AMC? AMC is really liked by retail. So every single time it sees a 2-hour divergence in this direction, it ends up going way down. That is the truth of it. You can go back, you can look at every 2-hour divergence in the last 2 years, and every single 2-hour divergence ends up seeing a massive drop. Now I said to myself, hey, I'm going to get out of that position. All right, awesome. Actually made some profit off of the position because I got in at the right times. And then we notice that goes down to $3. And what did I say in my head? Hey, if we go down to $3 though, I might actually end up buying it again because there's very good stuff here. Left, head, right shoulder that could have been. Sounds pretty good to me. So I'm going to take a play on it. And the thing is, with AMC, I never risk money that's going to even hurt my lunch, let alone hurt my weekend, let alone hurt my life. I am very risk managed with these things. I think it's just fun to play, and I hope that a moment happens for it. You do not have good signals here. The 2-hour is negative in negative territory. The 30-minute is in negative territory, trying to curl up. Maybe it needs some kind of divergence, and then watch out, because if the market does tumble and this thing is actually real and there are people that are shorting the hell out of this and naked short selling and the market drops and they get liquidated, then they are going to have to get out of those positions and AMC can run. And that would be very interesting because it looks like we're going to make a top this freaking week. If we go over to GME, you're seeing some interesting things because what if GME needs a little bit more time? What if GME actually curls down on the daily chart and creates some kind of divergence here? That would be very interesting to me. But if the daily does turn down, am I sitting there going, oh, the daily crossed down, let me buy calls? No, I would not. I would overall wait to see any kind of sign that that wants to loop back up at this point. But a lot of people that play GME, they just hold on to the damn thing. I think that's great. I like to look out for daily divergence because it's actually pretty simple for GME. Daily divergence, 2-hour divergence. We take the play, it goes up. Pretty fantastic for GME. This moment was pretty freaking rough for a lot of people, I will say that. But for now, it's really not in a terrible spot. It's not in a spot where it's really going to completely destroy through the floor unless the short sellers are really in trouble and need to do something really fast. Now we're going to talk about one that we actually posted to Patreon. The 2-hour chart here for Palantir was able to confirm, but it is still sitting on that center line. So sometimes when the 2-hour confirms, it doesn't mean you're wrong. It means your timing might be off. And there is an E right here. So you have to be a little bit careful with this one. That means position size and things like that's going to be very important. And really, at this point, I'm not planning on playing Palantir because when I was analyzing this, I didn't look down here and see that E. So at this moment, when it did cross down and I saw the E, I decided not to take the play because Palantir just goes up sometimes. It's like the new Nvidia. Government people are in it. Government people push it up. It's probably going to daily pull back just like everything else, but it's going to be a little funky with earnings. You do have major daily divergence. I don't think it's like the worst idea in the world. You just have to realize that if you're starting the position now while earnings is right around the corner, the implied volatility will be high. So you might be paying a premium in either direction at this point for Palantir. But if you were paying attention to something like JP Morgan, you will notice that there is a daily divergence for JP Morgan right here. If that does confirm to the downside, I think you are at least very likely to go down to 263.52. If you wanted a percentage for what that drop would be from the 9-day moving average, that would be almost 11%. It would be fantastic. So this right here is more one I would pay attention to. Why? Because the E already happened just a couple of weeks ago, or a few weeks ago, whatever it is. And we can notice that the 2-hour chart is looking pretty interesting here, kind of confirming across some interesting, like drawn out divergence. Now, is there 2-hour divergence in the near price action? No. So I would not be taking the hint here, right? I would be waiting to see if we get one more reaction and then see that fail. And if I get the confirmation over here, I would say, yes, we are going to get the daily pullback. And look how that leads into pretty much next Friday. So could be a very interesting time. Let's take a look at the 30-minute chart to see if we could get a 2-hour and 30-minute at the same time. And you will notice that you actually did make the 30-minute divergence. So the 2 hours able to cross with that. So I'd be looking for daily confirmation. You don't really have the best hints out there, but you can tell that it's gone up for a long time. It needs a big retracement. If it was going to be now, well, maybe you want to wait for confirmation, but if I build a position here, I can say, okay, if the 2-hour crosses up, that can be my management for the trade. I'm treating things very simply right now and just not paying attention to stocks that have high implied volatility because there are stocks with lower implied volatility, and the SPY and the QQQs and VIX itself all had low implied volatility for a couple of days here. So I'm building a position. Volatility did see a nice confirmation with the price action, but not necessarily on the MACD at the same time. The RSI was able to cross, but I need to double click on this and just say, yeah, technically you are holding one divergence point, so you could say multiple point divergence at this point. The MACD would say I am holding every single divergence point. So even though everyone's sitting there and going earnings is going to be great, volatility is turning up, and this is what we were talking about early on in the week. We were saying watch out because the way that this shapes up is volatility will most likely make a divergence or come and make a higher low. And you have the opportunity that it could do both before the SPY falls because they like to leak things out and use things like earnings and use things like data to tell you a big positive number. And you go, oh no, the last one was negative, so it's got to be down. And then it's just that positive number. Right. I just think it's manufactured, and I think everything is to make someone more fortunate than you, more fortunate, even more fortunate than you. And that's the truth of it. The 2-hour chart here, 2-hour divergence formed, 2-hour divergence on the MACD, 2-hour divergence on the RSI. You wonder why I took volatility and went pretty heavy with it today, even though I'm not the heaviest, so I can scale in later if the SPY wants to go up tomorrow, because I think it is very likely to go up tomorrow with GDP, but we'll see because we have no confirmation. The 2-hour chart was able to curl up, which means the daily is very likely to confirm these divergences, and we could have a top as soon as tomorrow morning, but I think they'll leak it out for a couple more days, and I think they're going to leak this out all the way into potentially August 1st, where they can blame everything on Donald Trump so that you can be focused on your computer and your social media and not focused on things that actually matter in your life, which are your family. And that's what I was able to do all July long. I wanted to say this at the end of the video. Yes, I am tired and I hung out with family for the whole month, but it was one of the best months of my life. I was able to hang out with family. I was able to meet an uncle of my wife that I have never met, and her aunt, and her cousin. And I was able to celebrate some birthdays, and I was able to celebrate a wedding, and I did not care too much about markets. And it was absolutely fantastic, and I felt good. Sure, maybe I could have made a little bit more money on trades if I focused a little bit more. I was able to make enough, and I kept the priority where it belonged to be. I want to live a life that is focused on keeping my priorities straight. And I noticed over the past couple of months that I had not been doing that. And so I am going to be very honest in these videos. I am going to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. And that is how I'm going to look at it. This is a very, very important channel to me. I really want to help you guys out very seriously. That is why I have this tone today. I am normally a very excited and happy person, but I look at the world today and I see everyone trying to get greedy and make money and ignore their mother's birthday. I don't like that, and I don't think you should either. Make your money, get your little pepperoni, and get out and go hang out with family. That's what I think you should do tonight. Do something nice for your family. To give you guys a little summary here for the breakdown, we do see the SPY able to go down, able to confirm some good things for the 2-hour chart. If the 30-minute is able to curl up, then we are going to head up, and that is purely mostly, I would say, dependent on earnings and GDP. And GDP can be the perfect thing that says, yes, everything is good, and then earnings says it's bad. Earnings and GDP can shoot this up for a while, and then Trump could say it's bad. So we really have to be trading like water here. I hope that you found something in this video helpful, and I hope that you guys do have a fantastic night. I hope you end this video, stop looking at charts because nothing is moving. The analysis you have is most likely good enough at this point. The plan should already be in place if you are in a trade, and you should be spending time with what matters in this world, which is your family. Thank you so much. Have a fantastic night. Peace